Welcome to Destination Marriage, a podcast about successfully navigating the winding roads of marriage. Whether you are looking to get married, you are engaged, newly married, or have been married for years, we want to share with you how we have successfully navigated those winding roads over the past 18 plus years.
Join us on this journey as we discuss real-life experiences, both highs and lows, and what we have learned along the way. Happiness, grace, passion are some of the things we all strive for in marriage, and we invite you to take this journey with us. Welcome to Destination Marriage.
Welcome to episode 16 of Destination Marriage. I'm Tommy.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are thrilled to have you join us on this journey today.
Yes. I'm sure you guys have heard the saying, comparison is the thief of joy, which is a saying originally attributed to Theodore Roosevelt.
Do we know that that was really Theodore Roosevelt?
It really was. Yeah.
It was?
Yeah. I made sure. I double checked, triple checked.
Have you seen those memes where it's like, just do it, Socrates? It's like, really? Did he say that?
He did.
Or does he own that saying other than Nike owning it?
I don't know. That's a good question. But I've been seeing it a lot lately. People have been posting it on Instagram, on their stories, on their posts. And I feel like I've been seeing it over the last few months. Now, I will say a lot of the people that have been posting it, I think they're really focused more on your personal comparison.
Right.
But, we thought just kind of based on the fact that it's very true. It's a popular saying, but so many of us are looking at social media and struggle with comparing ourselves to the person on the screen or the idea of who they are.
Yeah, it's really easy to do, especially in today's world where you can essentially peek into almost everybody's lives on the entire planet just with a swipe of your thumb or a push of a button.
Yeah. So we thought, how can we really apply this to, because it should be and can be applied to marriage as well.
Absolutely.
So I recently posted, and if you guys follow us on Instagram, you probably saw this as well, but I recently posted a saying on our Instagram that said, the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's green where you water it. So I was curious, when you hear that saying, Tommy, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the old adage of, the grass isn't greener on the other side has a lot of really positive, self-reflection type of feedback. But I think expanding that into focusing on where you're at and making sure that you're putting all of your efforts, or your best effort into where you're planted.
Yeah.
Since we're using a grass theme here, like if you're planted wherever you're planted, water that, put the effort into that area of your life, that wherever you are geographically, relationally, whatever it is.
Right.
I think it's really important. It's a great saying.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, the grass is greener on the other side thought process or mentality can also set unrealistic expectations. I mean, it could be, it can start with small things, little things, small things with your marriage. Like, oh, I wish my spouse kissed and hugged me more like, that spouse hugs and kisses, their spouse. Or I wish my wife cooked like that. Or I wish my wife cooked. Or I don't know, I wish my spouse bought me flowers. It could start with little things, but these small comparisons can slowly build and really snowball into something that could be...
Yeah, into much bigger things, right? So it could devolve into comparing your level of happiness in your marriage or your level of intimacy or love, your success, like job-wise, marriage-wise. And then I think worst of all is when it's comparing your spouse specifically to another person.
Right. That's probably, that I would say it can snowball into that, which is probably the danger zone everyone should stay away from.
I mean, they're all danger zones.
All of them, yeah.
You're on the highway to the danger zone.
Oh, my gosh.
Are they ever going to come out with that movie, Top Gun 2? I can't wait. Just stop. All right. I know you guys are with me. That movie was awesome. So, one thing that I think we all struggle with this to certain degrees. I think certain people are more inclined to really struggle with it, specifically with social media as far as that comparison. I don't remember who said it, but this is kind of a variation of a quote I heard that I really try to, take to heart and kind of make sure that I'm always kind of remembering this. What's
that?
So like on social media, we are comparing everyone's on stage selves to our behind the scenes. I think it's dangerous and honestly could inadvertently or purposely create hostility, anger,
Yeah.
or even bitterness with your spouse. If you're seeing all these things online and it's you don't know the reality behind what's being posted.
Yeah.
Like that was the 1,000th picture they took. The couple fought for a half an hour before they got the one picture that looked great on social media, or the mom that posted the look at my kids. Everybody's
Perfectly reading quietly.
Yeah, exactly.
After they had a tantrum for 2 hours.
And you screamed and yelled at them, and threatened their lives in order to take the picture.
Right. A lot of it is a highlight reel, and I think, if we understand that when we're looking at these things, then we
highlight reel. That's good.
It's a highlight reel. I mean, is anybody really? And maybe every now and then, I think people will do it to be funny, but is anybody really posting those behind the scenes? Those days that maybe we're not feeling so great.
I think if you my personal take is more to be balanced in my thinking, that recognize that we all do that. We all put the best foot forward on social media.
Yeah.
But also recognize that that is the best foot forward. So kind of take it with a grain of salt into their lives. And, but it's hard to do. It's, especially if you're having a bad day.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be social media. That's just the prevalent kind of
right now
in
it's
front of our face, right?
I
like
think right now it is social media though that's doing that.
But it could easily be you're out with a group of friends, and one group, one couple's talking about how great their lives are, and they just went on this fantastic trip, and their kids are straight A students and the captains of their teams, and you're sitting there like, oh, okay, well, you know what? We didn't get to go on our trip this time, and
maybe it's been a rough year.
Yeah,
and so,
it's been a rough year. I mean, it doesn't matter where the input's coming from. It could be any source. It's just, I try to be, level-headed about it, but it's hard.
Right. And you really can't compare your marriage to someone else's marriage without knowing, or I guess when we compare, where anybody looks at, like you said, a highlight reel, or they hear all of those bullet pointed things in those conversations of like just the peaks, or just the wins, we don't really understand, or we don't really know all the work that goes behind that, behind the scenes. How much effort, maybe they have more support. You don't really know the groundwork that, was laid before they got to that place, of success. So I just think that everyone, it puts an added pressure if you don't, like you said, have that level head and think around that, as far as like, well, obviously they didn't wake up and just roll out of bed into, win after win after win.
Full makeup, hair done.
Well, that too, yeah.
Well, you do. You look perfect.
I wish, yeah. No, this takes work, okay? This takes work. And I'm not the girl who goes to the gym with full makeup either. It looks rough. I'm there to sweat.
You're full of it. You look gorgeous. So what are some of, let's kind of talk about some of those little comparisons that may be from your perspective, and then from my perspective, kind of opposite though. So what do you think? I'll ask you first. What do you think are some of the, let's just say they're inadvertent, right? Because I think
it's not the question, it's just the temperature. I feel like it's good.
Well, it is like 95 degrees outside today,
so
there's almost no way of cooling off this place. So what comparisons do you think, this is all, let's just assume inadvertent, right? There's overt, like, well, Jimmy or Bob did this for his wife. That's that's using it as a weapon. I mean, like inadvertent comparisons that you maybe do that bother me, and then I'll answer the same question from your perspective.
Okay, gosh, that's kind of a tough question. Way to put me on the spot.
That's right.
Not just teasing. Okay, so I mean, if I'm being like just completely 100% honest and raw, I don't really think that I do this all the time, but maybe like, and I think maybe a lot of women or wives probably lean towards more of this of recognizing like romantic things, like, this spouse, like Jimmy or Bob, I don't know either one of these guys, but apparently they're killing it on Instagram. So they are. Check out their IGs. So let's say Jimmy went over the top for an anniversary, or you know, it could be a birthday, it could be Christmas, it could be Valentine's Day. Let's say Valentine's Day, because I feel like everyone has their eye on Instagram on Valentine's Day and they're looking at, oh my gosh, you know, so-and-so got a room full of roses all day. You know, she got like 16 bouquets of roses and love notes and flew her to Paris. Like, yeah, I probably would recognize those things and feel like, oh, you know, I think that those have probably been things that I've maybe mentioned, you know, but again, you know, that is also the highlight reel. And, you know, sometimes not everyone is in a place where they can do those extravagant things. It doesn't mean that you don't love me as much as Jimmy loves, I don't even know who he's with, but whoever this person is, I don't know. I mean, I think that I've done that in the past, but
yeah, and things like that. I mean, you know, when you
that can put an added pressure.
It does.
Yeah.
I don't take it well, and I have to, or maybe I haven't taken it well in the past. We've kind of talked about it, but I mean, it's. I think from a maturity standpoint, your immature gut reaction is to, like, get angry at you for saying that, because it's like, well, I can't do that for you right now. I can't afford that, or I don't have the time. Whatever it is, it feels like, you know, you're saying it as like a dig, and it may not be. It may just be, you know, oh wow, that's awesome. I would love that. But it's, you know, it's part of it's, I think, in the how it's mentioned or how it's said,
how it's communicated.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, also, like, I think it needs to be said and then also combined with, baby, I know you love me, and you know, it's not in the cards right now. However, this would be awesome if you could ever do something like this for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, flipping the question on you, because I feel like it's
that's all. That's it. That's all you got. Just the one thing.
I mean, I don't
Other
think
than that, you're perfect, huh?
Well, I know. I'm saying that's the thing that I probably would notice. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that other women don't do this. I don't look at Instagram and look at pictures of, or you know, other couples and say like, oh, why can't you dress like this person or
Right.
look like this? I don't. I don't do that, and that's not a thing for me. It's more of romance, because that's kind of my love language, anyways. I mean, nothing else is really going to probably catch my eye. I'm also definitely not comparing you physically to anyone else. It has to do with, you know, quality time, you know, so if people are doing those things to have that quality time together, that's huge for me, because that's my love language.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to notice, you know, when it comes to, and I'm sure there are other women that probably, I would say, not from me, but I know that other women probably also noticed when other husbands maybe do those home projects or do those, you know,
because that's important to
Pinterest
them.
things that we all want in our home. I think that's definitely a hot button for maybe a lot of other women, when it's not maybe extravagant gifts or, you know, romantic getaways. I think that's probably another hot button, because there's a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, I've heard this a million times. I wish Jimmy or Bob would pick up a hammer, you know, and do something in this house. You're very handy, so I don't.
Right, but it also
important.
doesn't. It's if you know, because it's not your love language, like acts of service like that, you appreciate it. But
I
you
appreciate
don't,
it.
It doesn't make you, you know, go over the moon.
I mean, it's not my love. I think of it as like, you know, it's our home and we're taking care of our home. We're doing these things together. It doesn't give me like butterflies,
right.
You know. But yeah, no, I'm guilty of it in that sense. When it comes to, you know, those romantic things, I don't think I've ever expressed it in any other way as far as like looks, or because I'm thinking about comparisons is what people really look at, you know, the way this somebody looks or the way they're dressing or, you know, other things that they're doing. Like I'm saying, you know, this is between a husband and wife. So those DIY projects, you already do those. But I know that there's a lot of women that are frustrated that don't have someone who maybe just doesn't want to do it, or they don't know how and they don't want to learn. So they feel shortchanged and frustrated. And I think that's probably an area that they could be compared. And no, I'm not perfect. I didn't say that. I just
know,
already.
You're close.
But I know it's different for men. I'm not, I mean,
yeah,
we're created differently. So obviously what's going to catch your eye, and I know your love language is also different than mine. It's not quality time and it's not gifts, you know, so I'll let you answer for yourself though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be different for all men to a degree, but I think that I think in general, and for all you ladies out there, I think being careful about how you express a few things around that from a comparison standpoint would probably be fairly universal.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say when it hits your wallet, or it hits your emotionally hits your wallet, or emotionally hits your kind of, as a man, being a provider or a leader, or physically as well, I think that I would say be very careful about how you approach talking about
Mm-hmm.
those types of things, right? So if
Yeah.
it's like gifts, or things around physical appearance, or hey, why don't you look at this guy online? He's got this great fitness routine. Why don't you do this? Look at his abs. Probably is not going to go. I know. I'm
That
just
I've
saying.
never
I'm
done.
saying in general. I'm just saying as like that's probably not going to.
Have you looked at your abs lately?
But you know what I mean. Like
They're serious.
I think that's just from a general man's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it's how you approach it too. It's really actually 100% how you approach it, because anything could be, I think it's important to know your husband or know your spouse, and know how they're going to take things.
Mm-hmm.
You could be coming from a place of complete like innocence and just excitement about something, and not even realize that you're hurting your spouse by bringing something up, by comparing them to something. So that's just from my perspective.
Okay, but you didn't answer the question.
Oh, I'm going to get to it.
Nice try.
No, I think the easiest comparison that's a negative that really could be hurtful is physical, like
Yeah.
a physical appearance,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, actual like body, but also maybe, just things, just how someone looks. Wow, look how young they look, or look at, I'm not stupid enough to be like, oh, wow, Jackie, look at this bikini model's body. Why can't you be this? That would be really hurtful.
If next week you only hear my voice, that's because
I said
Tommy
something like
buffooned
that.
himself and may have said that, and he's been kicked off the podcast.
Exited from the home. No, I think, but that can take, there's overt, right? Like, wow, look at this woman's body.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you have that body? Like, that's probably
Is
the
anybody
extreme.
that dumb? Like, honestly,
Well,
is anybody that stupid?
Maybe, right? But one would think.
Okay, well then I don't feel bad for him and the repercussions that are headed his way. Okay.
But I think maybe lesser ones would be more like, maybe like, look how young she looks, or, things along those lines. But there's also comparisons that, like, wow, that was, maybe it's not on an image, but, something around, wow, that woman is a really good cook. She bakes well, or whatever. Like, those are things that, a man could be saying it inadvertently, like, I really enjoyed that pie. Oh my gosh. And talk about that pie nonstop. And you're just sitting there like, all right, enough about the damn pie. Like, I'm busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on. I do all sorts of other stuff for you. And you just won't shut up about this woman's pie.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's kind of a silly one. I don't know why my mind goes to pie all the time, but
I know why.
because it's delicious.
Okay, just so everyone knows, Tommy has been able to sit and eat, I think, 7 or 8 slices of pie in one sitting.
Yeah, pretty much.
In one sitting.
I love me some pie.
Yeah. But
So I
no,
think
I
there's-
don't bake pies
there's-
because of that. I'm trying to save you.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking out for your health.
There you go. No, I think physical is probably the worst, at least from my perspective.
I think that's where their eyes go. That's where their minds go. That's the comparison. Especially, obviously when you're married for a long time, you're looking at the same person, the same face. So the same sensitivity that you mentioned that men have, if your wife should say, oh, why don't you do something that may be extravagant, that may be really romantic, when honestly, it may not be meant to as a verbal dig, but then, like you mentioned, it makes them feel lesser than, because maybe financially they're not in a position where they can do that. Obviously, I would hope that they want to do it, but I'm just saying, like, if they can't, they take it as a dig. But the same would apply, you know, for the man if he says anything along those lines. So it may not be the very same things, but those comparisons, when you're focused on those things, you are robbing not only yourself, but you're robbing your marriage. So you're taking that time, you know, you're taking your eyes, you're taking time away from your marriage, you're focused on someone else's relationship. And again, that relationship may all be smoke and mirrors for all you know, but it may be,
Yeah.
you know, it may be.
And I think it's fair to say that in general, men would make that comparison, whatever that comparison is, X comparison, kind of more often make that comparison from a place of, what? I didn't know that was going to be the case. Like, kind of like idiotically, and not really being tied into their understanding of how that's impacting their wife.
Mm-hmm.
More so than your average wife, right? I mean, I think women are more in tune to their emotions and would maybe pick up on, hey, before I say something, maybe realize how that's going to hurt the other person, compared to idiot husbands like myself who might just say something thinking, oh, I see something, I said something about it.
Something, say something?
Yeah.
What?
You know what I mean? Like, oh, wow, look at that.
We're not at the airport. No, I'm saying.
I'm just saying I'm saying men out there, like, recognize you're probably more prone to say something stupid, you know, inadvertently than women would be in the same situation. Just throwing out some advice to us guys, like, be mindful of what you say and how you say it.
Yeah. Well, it definitely, I think it has to do with, at the end of the day, you know, if you find yourself maybe doing that and you don't say anything at all, maybe it's me. Okay. And I'm recognizing I'm doing a comparison and I haven't said anything to you.
Mm-hmm.
I have an opportunity to remove myself from that comparison and reset my mind, take my eyes off of whatever it is that I think may be shiny and new, when, you know, it's taking me away from recognizing the blessing that we have before us and our marriage and everything we have and the things that we can still grow and aspire to. If we haven't, you know, reached all of those goals yet, you know, we have so many things that we're dreaming for and we're working towards together. And good for whomever it is, Jim and Bob, they're doing fantastic. Kudos to them. And kudos to their swimsuit model girlfriends who probably haven't had babies yet either. You know, look at them in 10 years when they have had those babies. Then bring that picture up.
Just for record, I did not bring a picture of a bikini model.
He didn't. He would not be on the podcast today, like I said.
I saw a quote. It wasn't attributed to anybody, but it said, social media has created jealous behavior over illusions. Sadly, some are envious of things, relationships, and lifestyles that don't even exist.
Smoke and mirrors, people.
It's I mean, you already kind of hit on it, but I think that kind of sums up a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
It's really easy to do that. It's so easy.
Mm-hmm.
But, so we've you know, kind of talked a lot about some of the, you know, the pitfalls and some of those comparisons. Anything else that kind of comes to mind as far as comparisons that maybe we make, just kind of specific things that we should kind of be on the lookout for?
Mm-hmm.
Anything comes to mind?
Comparisons through social media or
just anything? I think, how about from an overall marriage standpoint?
Yeah.
For me, I think the big one is just about like how much you see another couple and like, oh, they really seem to be into each other and and wow, they have a perfect marriage and you know, then turning around and saying, well, we're not perfect, you know, and recognizing,
nobody's perfect,
I know, but recognizing that you know, there are struggling marriages. There's a lot of struggling marriages, right? And there's some that are long lasting, and no one's marriage is perfect. I think if you ask anybody that's had a 50-year marriage, not one of them, at least every quote or story I've ever read.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Does anybody walk through life completely unscathed?
Yeah.
No.
But it's about that commitment. And I think, like right from the beginning, when the title of this episode is, it's the thief of joy. And like, it can suck the joy out of a marriage.
Right.
If you're letting those comparisons hurt you. But sorry, I kept rambling.
That's okay.
Any other things that you can think of?
Ramble away. So any other things that...
Yeah, like just kind of little things that could become big things.
I think this is not really... I know that this is something that's a hot button for a lot of other women, I would say. I kind of think it's kind of silly sometimes when I see it, because not when it's all the time. Like, I feel like it's a little silly because you see that person every day. But when I think when one spouse maybe just on social media really goes back and forth with complimenting the other spouse, not posting about them, but I'm just saying like posting underneath their post. Other people, I think, may feel like, oh, my spouse doesn't do that, or they don't, I think it can get a little weird because you're already seeing that person every day. So you're only talking on social media. It's weird. But I know that I've heard other women say stuff like that. So I know that that could be something that they feel like, well, why aren't you, saying that about me, on social media?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of social media, though, I think, when you're out with other couples and maybe one spouse is, very complimentary to the other spouse, or romantic or sweet, or, just a gentleman, if they do little things that, maybe your spouse isn't doing, like pulling your chair out, opening the door, like you may feel like, what, am I chopped liver over here?
Mm-hmm.
Opening the door is kind of a thing. Yeah.
That's
I can open up my own door, but
it's a simple one. I think it's just an honoring. I think it's an honoring thing, regardless of not just your spouse, but that's just the way I was built, I guess.
I think it's a gentleman thing. Everyone.
Yeah, a gentlemanly honoring thing.
Yeah. But yeah, little things like that, and I think even outside of social media, this can happen with TV, with shows like reality TV shows, which are probably not even real reality, but people do these comparisons through reality TV too.
Mm-hmm.
Those relationships, even outside of Instagram or, I don't know, Facebook, but I would say that's probably something else that I've noticed. What do you think? Is there anything that I'm missing that you think that I've noticed? Or
I think from a couple's, like from a marriage perspective, those are some of the big ones. I really do try not to, harp on and focus myself on some of those things, but
you're not really on social media though. I mean, let's be real.
I know, but not just social media, but like any type of, interaction with other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
You have the opportunity to take things a certain way, which kind of lends right into one question I had as we kind of talk about, how do you, there's both individual and then as a couple. So I wrote down a question. I said, I think this is a really important question. It's like, how do you emotionally or mentally use comparisons, whether on social media or when you hear about someone else's success or trips or kind of whatever path it gets into your head,
mm-hmm.
How do you use that as a positive motivator to make your life and your marriage or your kids' lives better versus allowing it to create envy, jealousy, or anger or bitterness? What do you think, babe?
So how to use it as a positive motivator?
Now, this is more like individually.
Yeah.
And then, but not necessarily. I mean, it's individual at first, but then you kind of, it also, you set a tone in your marriage by how you speak. So I think there's two avenues here. So individually, what do you think?
Well, I think, obviously we want to avoid getting to a place of envy, jealousy, or anger. I mean, I think envy is like you flat out want what somebody else has at all costs, and that's really dangerous. You don't want anybody around you like that. But to avoid the jealousy, the anger, the frustration, I think if we admire those things and look at those, whatever it may be, like those trips or the time that they're spending, or any one of those things. Obviously those hot buttons are different for everybody, but if we use that and actually maybe work towards those things, communicating that to our spouse in a way that is also mindful of their feelings and very sensitive to that, and encouraging, really with the end game or the goal being, I want this in our marriage too. Not I want their marriage, or I want that person, or I want you to look like this person, or I want you to be this person, but I want these things in our marriage too. That's different than, I want you to be this person. That obviously no one can, set an expectation like that. You're just setting them up for failure. But if you want certain things in your marriage, like romance, you want to spend, you want to go on extravagant trips, or maybe you want to feel like your spouse is doting on you and you want those flowers and you want those special things. Those aren't bad things.
Right.
It just needs to be communicated the right way. Now, if you go to your wife and you say, hey, why don't you look like this girl? well, sorry, we can't help you.
Right.
You need help, but we can't help you.
So as I think about this, I think it's really important. There's a few things that I think are good tips and things that I try to do myself. Number one, I've heard this from different teachers, and I don't even remember where I've heard it, to be honest. But I think one thing you can do, because there's like that personal jealousy or personal envy, and then there's that comparison jealousy or envy of your spouse or your marriage. So I think personally, a tip that I had heard that I have used over the years to try to, like, especially if you're in a bad place emotionally, or you're in a valley financially, or just whatever, that you're not feeling great about yourself or your situation at the time, is when you see, especially if it's someone that's in your sphere, a friend or a family member that gets some sort of something great happens to them, or they're blessed with something, is to actually intentionally be happy for them.
Yeah.
And specifically tell yourself, I'm happy for them, I bless them, like, that's fantastic. And say it out loud if you need to by yourself, but mentally think that.
Right.
And I think it takes you down a whole different path, and I think it makes you feel better, at least inside, emotionally. But it's an intentional act. It's not just, oh yeah, I'm happy for them. It's like, I'm going to choose to be happy for them.
Right.
And it has helped me personally, with whatever situation. And I think it's good for marriage. In the same scenario with marriages is, if we agree when we see somebody be, in somebody's marriage that's blessed, or something happens that's great to them, is like, let's choose to be happy for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really important to do that. Number two, more on the kind of comparison piece, is if you are feeling a certain way about, something that you're jealous of, or you see that you wish your spouse would do, or look, or say, or anything, maybe it's better just to keep it to yourself and deal with it yourself until you feel like you don't need to express that to the other person. Don't, and then just think through it before you even potentially bring it up. And then maybe you manage it yourself, you get over it, and then it's a afterthought.
Well, hold on.
Oh.
Those are two different things, though.
I know.
You can't change how somebody looks, right? But if it's something you want your spouse to do, like, let's say I wasn't affectionate at all, and you felt like, I want my spouse to kiss and hug me more. That's not a bad thing in a marriage. You want those things. It's a healthy marriage.
Right.
So I don't think you should keep that to yourself, right? You want to communicate that the right way. But
yeah, I guess to clarify what I mean is, okay, so something happens, you see something on social media, you're out with a couple, and that something comes up, and you immediately think to yourself, like, you feel that sense of comparison or jealousy, and you wish maybe a good thing. Be careful. It goes to how you communicate, but maybe sometimes it's just better to keep it to yourself, and then maybe kind of rethink through it before you say something. Because if it's fresh in both of your minds, or it's something, sometimes you can not directly do the comparison and still get your point across as far as what you would like, right? So instead of maybe saying, hey, look what she did for her husband, look at this, post, or hey, some friends, Susie Q, Jim and Bob, right? Well, Susie helped Jim and Bob, or, well, not Jim
Wait
and
a
Bob.
second.
You know what I mean? Like, basically,
Jim and Susie.
maybe you don't need to make the direct comparison, just in a general way, say, hey, I would love X and Y. It would really be important to me. And that way, it's just something that you're expressing to your spouse that you want without making a comparison. So keeping the comparison to yourself, but also expressing what you want.
Okay. I like that better.
Is that better? That's kind of
where
I was
Instead of keeping
going.
it to yourself, because I think that there can be positive things that you, like I said earlier, that you can admire about another couple. I'm not talking about envy or covetousness. That's totally different. We already talked about that. You want to stay away from that. But if there are things that you recognize in another marriage that are positive things that you want for your marriage as well, and we all should want to strive for the best marriage possible. If there are areas that you feel like that are lacking, or things that you feel like, hey, I need that too. You know, that makes me feel good, or I want my husband to do these things for me. I'm not talking about the things to that extreme, but like I said, it could be, I need more hugs. I need more affection. You know, I want a lunch date with you. I want that time together. Communicating the way you said, not as a comparison, but not keeping it to yourself, because then that bitterness will happen. Then you'll be angry and frustrated.
That's a good
point.
point.
Can't keep that inside. You should share that. You're supposed to work towards these things together.
Right.
And again, you know, their grass maybe look fantastic right now, and you should be happy for them. But everyone's going to have their day in the sun, okay? Your grass is going to just, if we're going back to the grass, it goes through seasons, you know?
It's going to brown like ours is right now with this ridiculous heat.
I know. It's September and it's almost 100 degrees outside. But there are going to be seasons in your marriage where it is lush and it's overflowing and things are just, you know, because of the care and the time and the effort that you put into it, it's thriving. And there's going to be other times and other seasons, the seasons that you don't see on Instagram, that you don't see on social media, where you have brown patches of grass, or, you know, maybe you've got a couple of weeds that need to be pulled. But it's those that have been, like you mentioned, you know, those marriages that have been together for 50 years, they've gone through those seasons.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can't compare yourself, you know, to, you know, someone else who maybe hasn't had any of those droughts or those difficult times. Everyone will go through it, but you know, you got to see and admire the ones that have come through on the other end.
Comparisons in those moments, which all marriages are going to go through, are going to have an exponentially negative effect on the marriage.
Right.
All right. So last question. We've talked about a lot of like how you express things as far as comparisons. What would you recommend with internally or, you know, externally, how you receive things that are said by your spouse that are comparisons?
Okay. So and this is a negative?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter?
That's what I mean, right? So like it's not just in how it's said or how it's expressed. It's also in how it's received.
Can I get it in a sentence, please?
Yeah. What's the origin? Received.
Okay, so I think that instead of maybe reacting immediately, process it before you respond to your spouse. And I'm talking more along the lines, if you maybe feel like that person is coming at you in a negative, if you feel that there's something negative about it and it is a comparison rather than, hey, I want this for a marriage as well. Because I think if you go to your spouse and say, hey, I really want more time together, I don't really think anyone's going to feel negative about that. But when you're saying comparisons, or you feel as though it's a comparison, I think stepping away and processing it before you respond to your spouse, or at least that's what I would do, what I've learned to do, that's the best approach, because then you react more out of like a knee-jerk reaction, you know, and then I think from there you probably are going to go down a negative path.
Yeah, I think it's probably easier for women to mature into that type of response than it would be for men on average. I know for me, it's definitely something that I have really tried to focus on over the last couple years, is if you express something to me, is intentionally think, what does she mean and where's that coming from? Because a lot of things come from an area of, it just depends on your spouse, right? So for you, I know kind of most things when you say them, where they come from. Yeah. And we've got to a point where if it does turn into an argument, if you say something or I say something and then we respond quickly, it turns into an argument. A lot of times now, let's say it still does that, we kind of come down from that argument pretty quickly because we talk about where it came from and what I meant and what you meant, or, whatever that is. So I certainly would say, that some of that comes with time, and but it's hard to step away if you're in the middle of a conversation. It's kind of sometimes awkward, right?
We've done that before.
Yeah,
a lot of
but I mean,
times.
if like you're just
Probably
if
more
you
so
say
now
something,
in our marriage, we've learned to let's put a pin in it and come back to this later, because if we're both feeling highly emotional, it's probably not the best time to respond.
Yeah.
But we also try not to let things fester either. We don't,
yeah.
even when we're angry, don't like to be apart.
But I think
What's that saying? Hold on. What's that saying?
I don't know.
You told me this saying. It was like, I'm so mad at you. I don't want to be around you, but I still want to be around you. It was some type of meme.
It was something like, which fit you perfectly. Even when you're pissed off at me.
Go away. No, stay.
you better stay right beside me. If you leave me.
I'm going to be angry with you sitting right here. Holding my hand while I'm angry at you.
But that's gonna look a little differently for every marriage, I think. Mm-hmm. But it's really important, I think, to know where your spouse is coming from when they say certain things, or what maybe is perceived as a comparison. Mm-hmm. And then vice versa, express like, hey, just so you know, when you say things like this, when you bring up these situations from what you hear or see, it hurts. It makes me feel this way.
Right.
Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Or some version of that. I think it's important to both internalize where something's coming from your spouse, but also express it to them. This is how I feel when you say things like that. And then for that person to receive that and say, okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'll work on that. Versus, well, you're just being, too sensitive. That's never a good statement.
No, it's
especially for you men. That's not a good sentence. You're too sensitive.
Yeah. Or like, is it that time of the month again? Oh my gosh. You don't say that to me, but I feel like somebody out there probably does. And you should stay away from that. No, it's not
so.
Wise. You want to stay married? You want to stay married? Don't say that. Well, hopefully this was some good food for thought. We really appreciate you guys joining us. And
it's
again,
a deep topic.
It is
really
a deep topic.
I mean,
I think it's something that honestly needs to be talked about, with probably every marriage, every relationship. I think a lot of people are maybe doing a little bit of recognizing that in themselves personally, or I wouldn't be seeing it constantly on Instagram, where people are personally putting that on there. And I think it's kind of, they may be feeling that. Mm-hmm. But this is something that needs to be applied to marriages. I think that you can potentially be robbing your own marriage if you're doing this within your own relationship. And, if you are experiencing this, I would encourage you to have that conversation with your spouse. If you feel like there's some comparison, a healthy conversation that's very mindful of the other person's feelings as well.
Use it for positive growth, not for negative comparisons. And men, like, realize that it's never never motivating to your spouse to compare. I think it probably impacts wives more than men, although I think it probably impacts men. Men aren't able to express it as well if it does impact them. So I think it would be mindful of that. But we really thank you guys for listening today. Hopefully it was some good advice. I know we've definitely matured in our marriage with the comparison. Mm-hmm.
We've been there. So this is a real topic for us. We have been there.
We could keep talking and, if we wanted to, for hours about, what we've learned over the years with this. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. No, but we've, like you said, like every marriage goes through those dry patches. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't learn from them, there's going to be more, or they can be fatal. And we don't want that for anybody. So.
Right. We hope this is encouraging to you guys. And, again, view your marriage as that grass and go water it.
Amen.
All right. Well, check us out next week, guys. Be safe.
All right. Bye.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if so, please continue to listen on Podbean, iTunes, or Spotify. And hit subscribe. Also, visit us at DestinationMarriagePodcast.com. Follow us on Instagram at Destination_marriage. And be sure to tune in to our next episode.